You're very welcome to Awaken Ireland Radio Show. I'm your host, James O'Sullivan. I'm going to be here talking to you for the next hour or so. But I won't be alone because we do have a very special guest ringing in from Waterford City. His name is David. And David is a mind of information in relation to legislation around the rights of the father, and the rights of the child, and the rights of the family. And I had the wonderful opportunity to sit in on one of David's meetings there recently and see how he operates. And I have to say that I was very impressed with the way things were done there. And I'm very much looking forward to having David on Awaken Ireland Radio Show this week. And we had a few false starts, and glad to say that he is sitting on Skype at home inside in Waterford City, Johns Park. And he's only raring to go and waiting to jump in as soon as I give him the green flag to jump in and start the conversation. But we have a few things I want to go through before we start talking to David, because that will be a very intense conversation once we start that. So I'd like to cover a few other different topics before we go into that. And one of the topics I'd like to address is the apparent breakdown in law and order in Waterford City. And I have to say that the reports that have been coming to me have been incredibly shocking, and not to say the least bit terrifying when I hear about the collusion and the corruption that seemingly, because I have to say that because there will be a court case pending very, very soon, seemingly is happening inside in Waterford City in the Garda station. And I don't want to go on air and talk about this subject lightly at all, because as you can imagine, this is not something that anybody really wants to have to talk about. Everybody wants to think that the people that put on the blue clothes, you know, the blue shirt, the blue jacket, the blue hat, that goes out into the public and takes an oath to protect the Constitution and the people of Ireland, that they would take that oath very seriously. But the reports that are coming back to me in relation to people that I know and other people is that these oaths are being stamped upon, rejected, ignored, abused in many, many, many ways, and that certain members of An Garda Síochána in Waterford City have decided to basically take the law into their own hands, because as everybody knows, that when you become a member of An Garda Síochána, that you are not the law, but you enforce the law. So this is something that I think that some members of An Garda Síochána, which is a corporation, I will remind you, that certain members of An Garda Síochána have become drunk with power. And by becoming drunk with power, what is happening is that they forget that they took an oath to uphold the Constitution and to protect the people on the land. Because what seems to be happening is that they feel that because there's certain legislation in place, that it gives them the power to pretty much do whatever they want. And for me, being a father and being a member of society in a small sleepy town here in County Waterford, that is a very frightening prospect indeed. Because once the Garda start believing that they are above the law, what you have is a complete and utter breakdown of law and order. And that is what seems to be happening. Now, I can't go into the details of what I've been told because I might prejudice the case, but I can say this, that what has been told to me in confidence is quite shocking, and that if it allows to continue, what we will see will be a very, very, very quick breakdown of order in the current system that we have, because there's always a reaction to any action. That's just the laws of the universe. So, if people who have certain powers or believe they have certain powers decide to act beyond those powers that are entrusted to them, because that's all they are, remember, they're only entrusted to them, and that when they are taking their oaths, when they put on the uniform, all they have is trust of the people. And when that trust starts to break down, the fabric of society will also break down, because you don't have anything anymore. And I'll put this out there to any members of An Garda Síochána that might be listening to this particular broadcast. If you can't uphold your oath of office, if you don't appreciate the order of society that we have in this country, that we have worked very, very hard for many, 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 many years now, for many, many centuries now. You can go back hundreds of years. It all depends on your understanding of history. If you think that it's okay to completely and utterly ignore your oath and the protection that you are supposed to provide for society in an honourable fashion, well then what's going to happen is that you're actually going to jeopardize your own future. That's what's going to happen. And I don't need to spell that out to you, because this is the path that you're walking down right now. And this is a warning to all An Garda Síochána. It's not a threat, but what it is a warning to you. Okay? If you're listening, pay attention. Every action has a reaction. There will be a reaction, have no doubt, and any further actions will have more of a reaction. And I don't want to go into the details, like I already said. I'd love to. I really would. But I'm not going to go into the details. The people that know, they know. They know what happened on the quay in Waterford only a few days ago. And what happened was in breach of the Irish Constitution, personal liberties. There was collusion, there was corruption, and there was violence that was used against members of the public, and it will eventually be seen for what it was. But again, I'm not at liberty to talk about it in any great detail, and I won't, because I don't need to. But what I will say is that this can't go on for forever. It just can't. And everything comes to a head at some stage, and then there's a release, and that release will come very shortly. So I'm not going to talk about it anymore, because the people that are involved, they know the situation, and I've had to deal with people that are quite upset and angry, frustrated, and very intelligent people. People have good hearts, and they're not going to allow themselves to be left down, because they stand together. That's just the way it's going to be, and this is the way we're at. I think that's exactly where we're at right now. I think it's really is. It's coming to a point now where, I suppose, you're seeing the likes of Shawnee Fitzpatrick being arrested. Now, if that's just for show for the general public of Ireland, who knows? I don't know. Only time will tell. But I think we're coming to a turning point. I think I can feel that now. There's a turning point that's coming now, and it's there's a shift. There's most definitely a shift happening. And all I'm saying is watch this space, and let's see what happens next. So I just want to go to another quick song, and then I'm going to read out a very interesting article from the globalresearch.ca website, which I get regular updates from. It's a fantastic website, and anyone should really they should try and get regular emails sent to their email inbox, because if you're interested in the greater scope of things that are going on an international level, which I very much am, like to keep tabs on what's going on with the great global powers and what they're doing, well, check out globalresearch.ca. But I will be reading an article out after this song. This is Billy Joel, all about soul. Welcome back to Awaken Ireland Radio. You're very welcome again to our show again on a Sunday night. And I'm going to read out an article now for you from the Global Research website. You get a very, very interesting articles regularly from the Global Research website. I highly recommend that you check them out. I'm going to read this one out to you. In a society which criminalizes and degrades whole communities on the basis of skin color and low economic status, and which refuses appeals for clemency even for mentally sick individuals, is it any wonder when certain other members of that society treat their fellow citizens with brutality over perceived grievances and grudges? Sick individuals are the product of a sick society. President Barack Obama has led the American nation's soul-searching over the latest shooting spree in their country, in which 12 people were murdered in a Colorado cinema house by a seemingly crazed 24-year-old man. Obama said he was shocked and saddened by the horrific shooting, in which a university doctoral student callously opened fire on families and friends who had packed a theatre in Aurora, Colorado for the opening night of the latest Batman movie, The Dark Knight Rises. James Holmes, the alleged shooter, had likened himself to the Joker, the arch-villain of the Batman series. Methodically, he entered minutes after the movie began, screening at midnight last Thursday, wearing a helmet and gas mask and clad in full body armour. Holmes set off 2 tear gas grenades and then proceeded to spray the terrified audience with bullets from a 12-gauge shotgun, a .4mm Glock handgun and a semi-automatic assault rifle. Tragically, some of the people initially thought it was a promotional stunt for the film. In somber tones, Obama urged fellow Americans, when confronted by moments of darkness and challenge, we must now come together as one American family. We must stand together. Moments of such darkness recur with disturbing frequency in the American society. Since Obama took office in early 2009, there have been at least 6 mass shootings across the United States, from Binghamton in New York, where 13 people were killed in April 2009 at an immigration service centre, to Oakland, California, where 7 people were shot dead at a Christian college earlier this year. Before that, the biggest murder spree was in 2007 at Virginia Tech, where a gunman killed 32 people at a college before taking his own life. In 1999, only 17 miles from the latest massacre, 2 teenagers went on a shooting rampage in Colorado's Columbine High School, killing 12 of their fellow students and a teacher, and then turning their guns on themselves. So what is it about the American society that makes the wanton destruction of human life such a routine occurrence? Some point to the constitutional right for all citizens to bear firearms and the easy access to buying even high-powered weapons over a shop counter. Campaigners for stricter gun controls point out that there are more firearms in the US than there are citizens, some 300 million. Such is the prevalence of mass shootings in the US that even conservative public figures, such as commentator Bill Kristol and New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg, are now calling for greater restrictions on gun ownership. The American gun lobby claims that the perpetrators of such horrific killings are simply sick individuals who have become unhinged morally and psychologically. Added to the debate are complaints that American popular culture have become saturated with gratuitous violence, from Hollywood to television to video games, which has desensitized young people to killing and maiming. Indeed, the Batman movies themselves are known for scenes of unremitting explosive violence. However, the spectrum of American politicians and media pundits does not seem capable of acknowledging nor even being cognizant of a deeper malaise for these mass killings. This malaise stems from how deeply ingrained and integrated violence is in the very fabric of US society. That is because it stems from America's capitalist social disorder, and have-nots, is structural violence against marginalized communities, a system of self-enriching cronyism for ruling elites at the federal and state levels, the looting of public finance by banks and corporations, and from the country's increasingly lawless and destructive relations with the rest of the world. What makes the systematic violence of the US so lamentable is that not one of the political parties or mainstream media is able to provide a comprehensive narrative for the root cause. They are intellectually bankrupt. Therefore, the solution will continue to elude, and the violence will continue again and again. A look back at some of the incidents and news in the days preceding and following the Colorado cinema shootings casts some light on where such depravity may stem from. Earlier in the week, as the shooter held his finger on the trigger, there's another gratuitous homicide. U.S. Navy men on board a 670-foot warship USNS Rappahannock opened fire with heavy machine guns on a small fishing boat in the Persian Gulf Survivors among the Indian fishing crew said that without warning shots or signals, their vessel was sprayed with a hail of lead from .4 caliber armor-piercing guns. One of fishing crew died when his body was torn into 3 pieces from the gunfire, while 3 others were critically wounded. The US Navy ship didn't even stop to tend the injured. Respect for law, human life, not as far as US government military force are concerned in this instance, as in so many other instances in Afghanistan, Iraq and countless other countries where they operate. The day before the Colorado murders, the American mainstream media reported Congress had approved an annual budget of $606 billion for Pentagon military expenditure, including overseas operations such as a massive build-up of American warships and fighter jets in the Persian Gulf against Iran and the ongoing 11-year war in Afghanistan, the longest war in American history. Such official disclosure of military spending, larger than that of all countries of the world combined, eclipses total American government spending on health, education, employment and training, research and development, community and social welfare, public infrastructure and utilities, and it comes at a time when poverty is ripping apart families and communities the length and breadth of the US, affecting some 50 million Americans. This is an economy of war and violence writ large, an economy dictated by a few, unaccountable to the majority. A macabre form of cost-cutting came in the form of the Texas state execution of death row prisoner Yuckerman Hearns. Just hours before the Colorado slayings, mentally disabled Hearns was put to death with a single lethal injection, instead of the customary administering of 3 chemicals. The single injection of pentobarbital would presumably save the state money. Pleas for clemency were ignored by the Texan authorities, even though Hearns was intellectually disabled from childhood. A second African-American man, Warren Hill, is to be executed this week, also by single lethal injection in the state of Georgia, after more than 20 years on death row. Like Hearns, Hill is also mentally disabled. Their cases illustrate disquieting trends in the American justice system. First, the number of death row prisoners has increased 5-fold from the mid-1970s, when the death penalty was reinstated, to some 3,100 currently. Second, the numbers awaiting execution are disproportionately higher for men from poor black communities. And thirdly, this capital punishment is being used increasingly on individuals who have clinical conditions of mental impairment. In 2002, the US Supreme Court ruled that execution of intellectually disabled inmates was cruel and unusual punishment, but the practice continues in many states. In a society which criminalizes and degrades whole communities on the basis of skin color and low economic status, and which refuses appeals for clemency even for mentally sick individuals, is it any wonder when certain other members of that society treat their fellow citizens with brutality over perceived grievances and grudges? Sick individuals are the product of a sick society. The reasons why I'm reading that out is because what's happening in America is only a flavour of actually what is going to come our way in the near future. Okay, so all I can say is we have to keep a very, very, very careful eye on what's happening on the bigger stage over in America, to see what's happening here. And the guest that we're bringing on tonight, Dave from Fact Ireland, is going to talk about the children's rights referendum that's coming very shortly in Ireland, and this will take away the rights of the parent. The state will have complete and utter control over the rights of the family and the parents to decide what is right for them and what is right for their children. And the craziness that's going on over there in America on that level is reflected on a smaller scale in a smaller country, but we have to keep an eye on what's happening over there, I believe, on a bigger scale, to be able to see what might be happening very, very shortly down the road in this country. It mightn't be as obvious over here, but we do need to keep an eye on the craziness. So I'm going to go to another quick song, and then we're going to bring on Dave. I'm looking forward to that.
Actually gave up, went on the dry about a year ago, but he was a recovering alcoholic, only discharged from a psychiatric unit in a local in Waterford, in Waterford Regional Hospital.
Sorry, Dave, the mic was actually turned off there by mistake. Could we just start that again, please? I apologise. I didn't realise
no
the mic was off. Just go back to the start of that conversation again. Dave, welcome Dave again onto the show, and Dave, could you go back to the start of the reasons why you went down the road that you went down for Fact Ireland setting up a new group there in Waterford?
Oh, okay, can you hear me there, James? Yeah,
you're okay. I just didn't have the mic turned on, so.
Okay, the reasons why I set down the route that I'm involved in today is because for the last 6 years ago, I found myself in a position where the HSE had removed my 3 children from the care of their mother because herself and her partner at that stage were incapable of providing the care that the children needed. The children were being neglected.
Yeah.
So at that stage, what I discovered was the HSE at that time were refusing to engage and communicate with me. And I found out the reasons why was because at that time, and I didn't know anything about it at this stage, but I discovered that in order for them to engage with me, I would have to be what we would call now today is a legal guardian to the children.
Yeah.
And once I had obtained that, then they were obliged to engage and communicate with me in respect of all 3 of my kids.
Yeah.
So discovering that, and I had to learn very, very fast, and I had to learn very quick. And discovering that, what we also discovered was that there was a hole in relation to the lack of support for fathers. Now, don't get me wrong, James, I think I said this before, I'm not sexist, I'm not discriminatory in any way, shape, or form, okay? But what I discovered was that there was a hole where there was a lack of support for fathers who were experiencing difficulties in relation to maintaining contact with the children following the breakup of their relationship from their children's mother. And we discovered that there was an abundance of resources of support for mothers in these cases already out there, but there wasn't one for fathers.
Yeah.
So myself and a number of other guys got together, and what we decided to do was we decided to approach our local community partnership here in Waterford, and we put a proposal to them, and after let's say considerable amount of time for them to consider it and think it over, they agreed to support us to set up an organisation in Waterford.
Okay.
So initially, from that day, FACT itself has gone more or less from strength to strength. It has had many people through its doors. Everything that we do and anything that we deal with is strictly confidential. As you say, that what is said in the environment of the support meetings stays within that environment and doesn't leave the meeting rooms after the meetings are over. Any information that's provided to individuals is provided for their own use and for their own use only.
Yeah.
It's entirely up to them whether they want to use it or not.
Yeah.
But the information is made available to them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's taken a lot of hard work to get FACT to where it is today, and it hasn't been easy. We first initially set up the first Father's Day community fun day in Waterford there 2 years ago, which has proved very, very successful last year and the year before. This year it had to be cancelled for reasons outside of our own control, but hopefully next year we'll be able to run it again.
Mm-hmm.
But our organisation, James, runs on a voluntary basis.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have a tendency to think voluntary means free.
Mm.
Yes, it's a person giving up their time freely to assist those who genuinely and are in need of it. But sometimes that free can only go so far. Do you know what I mean? It's a case of that we will help anybody who comes to us, right? We will never turn our backs on anybody. It doesn't matter who they are, what race they come from, what sex they are. I mean, that doesn't matter to us. But what does matter to us is that when people do come to look for help and support from us, it's a case of, we're a voluntary organisation. We don't have any state funding, and any funding we do get is only locally, or funding that we raise ourselves, which is very minimal and very limited.
Yeah.
And we do have overheads. You know what I mean? We do have administration costs.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, what we would like to say to people is that, do you know what I mean, that we don't get hundreds of thousands or millions of euros from the state or from Europe to do what we do. We do what we do because we want to do it, and we are passionate about it. And the only way anybody should get into something like this is if they do have a passion for it. Because if they don't have a passion for it, then it's not going to last.
Yes, I agree. You have to have an absolute passion for what you're doing. That's for sure. And I could see that when I went to your meeting there recently. You know.
Yes. Now, in relation to the structure of our organisation is built up on a committee of a coordinator, vice chair, treasurer, secretary, and a PR.
Yeah.
Now, each person on our committee is trained and has a qualification for a specific task, and they have what you would call FTAC qualifications.
Mm.
We have two members of our committee who are, or three members of our committee who are trained in law. Okay,
yeah.
In family law. We have two members of our committee that are trained in family law and trained in suicide intervention. We have another member of our committee who is trained in child protection.
Mm-hmm.
And he's trained by none other than but the HSE. And the professionals who are involved with our organisation are independent professionals from outside the organisation who provide their service at either a generous discounted rate or on a pro bono or what is the other word that's used, but non-gratis basis. But they are all highly qualified and well experienced in the fields and in the areas that they actually practice. We have access to direct professional access in relation to a professional solicitor, a person who is trained in. We have a member of our organisation who actually holds a law degree and is involved in matters of the High Court on a day-to-day basis, and is currently involved in a very what you call hopeful high-profile case in the Supreme Court.
All right.
We also have a mediator, where her profession and her background is purely on family law only, and that is the area that she has chosen. Now she is due to release a report in the coming months in relation to family law in Ireland. And according to all belief, that when this report is released, this mediator has her ticket bought on the first available flight on the day directly after this report is published and released. She's leaving the country.
Wow.
Because she has to.
Wow.
Because it's not going to be safe for her to remain in Ireland afterwards.
My God, she feels that.
Yes. She has already received pressure from very senior members of the judiciary to to dilute her report.
Right.
So when her report is released, it's going to blow the family law system in Ireland wide open, like a can of beans left on an open fire.
Okay. Can you go into more detail about exactly what you're talking about in relation to that? What is going to be split up there? What what controversy is going to be created from this particular report? In what
The
areas of family law?
The biggest controversy is one is what has been getting a bit of media attention recently, not a lot but a little, in relation to the in-camera. The in-camera law in Ireland is where matters are heard in court. Matters are heard in court either in public or otherwise in private, but at the discretion of the judge. The judge has sole discretion over deciding whether a case is heard in private or in public. Okay?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that are going on in family law courts around this country, where a lot of judges sitting on the benches, particularly in the circuit courts, okay, particularly in the circuit courts, have more or less let's say, have overstepped the line in relation to their position on the bench.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly when dealing with either lay litigants or, let's say, in relation to dealing with men.
Okay.
Right? Particularly dealing with men in family law matters going before the circuit court. But it's going to expose the in-camera rule for what it really is.
Okay.
Also, as well as that, it will also expose the constant breaches of individuals' constitutional and human rights behind the private family law courts in Ireland.
Okay. Well, like, what can I say? I can't wait for this to happen, because it's very exciting, to be honest with you, because it's so badly needed, David. You know, it's so badly needed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's so badly needed. It needs to be changed. It needs to be changed so badly. It's I know myself. I'm a single dad. I went through the system. I didn't realise that I was known as a legal stranger when my son was born. That I had to apply to 8 courts to have rights to see my son. I was like, okay, what is this all about? I mean, why do I have to apply to 8 courts?
I agree with you totally. Because when your children are born, and when your child is handed into your hand first from the very minute it's born, at the end of the day, you're a father, do you know what I mean? And nothing else matters, do you know what I mean? You're a father, you're the child's father. But as far as the state is concerned, unless you're married, you're not legally recognised as the child's father.
Yeah, it's insane. It's absolutely bonkers.
Isn't it? Even though your name is on the birth certificate, like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
and there wasn't any problem there. You know, I mean, there wasn't any problem. I mean, the relationship broke down pretty bad after the child was born. We actually broke up before my son was born. But I mean, you know, you'd be there for the, you know, for the child being born, right? But then when I went to go and sort things out, and things didn't actually go according to plan afterwards, and a lot of animosity developed over the first 6 months of the child's birth and development, and I realised that I was going to have to go to court to try and get access because it wasn't happening. I realised that I wasn't even recognised. So what's this all about?
Yes.
And this is my first introduction to the idea of you know, legislation for the person.
Yes.
And I didn't even know at the time what the person was. I had no clue. It was years later I found out what the person's all about. But at the time I was kind of going, oh, a second now, I'm the father, you know, she's the mother, you know, and I recognised at the time that obviously that the mother needs to be protected, and she's just had a newborn child, and absolutely I'm not going to interfere with that, you know, because that's the connection that's there when the child is born. But I mean, I am entitled to see the child, regardless of whether we're not together anymore, regardless of whether there's a contract as in marriage. You know, for me it was like, it's like it didn't compute. It doesn't make any sense. Like, it's I can understand that the protections need to be there, but where are my rights?
But you see, James, the problem is, and I'm guilty. I was guilty of this myself, right? The problem is that the attitude that was out there, and I'm only going back 4 or 5 years ago. Okay, number one, when you have a child and the child is put into your arms, and you spend 4, 5, 6 years of that child's life being heavily involved in that child's life. Okay.
Yeah.
The last thing you don't expect is for somebody to turn around and say to you, really, you're not that child's father. Because literally that's what the statute was saying. You know what I mean? That's what the law was saying.
Yeah.
The law was saying, you're not that child's father. But yet, when you sign your name on the birth certificate, right?
Yeah.
And you put your name down on the birth register, declaring, just remember, the birth registration is a declaration.
Yeah.
It's a legal document. It's a sovereign document, right? It has the sovereign seals, the whole lot on it, okay?
Yeah.
And it's even written on the end of it, anybody who provides false or misleading information on this document may be liable to a fine or may be liable to prosecution and either be liable to a fine or 6 months imprisonment or both. All right.
Yeah.
So when you sign your name on a declaration like that, like, I mean, you're not just going to sign your name on that just for the sake of signing your name on it. You're putting your name down and you're declaring that you're the child's father. So the state don't recognise the birth certificate. Right. So there's a contradictory in itself there. You're signing a state declaration stating and declaring you're the child's father, but yet when it comes to the law, and when I say the law, I mean the man-made law, they say no, we don't recognize you as the child's father. You have no rights to this because why? One little problem, because you're not married.
Yeah.
Because you're not married.
It's all about contracts.
But to go back to the other point you were making, as I said, that I was guilty of myself going back, and it takes a change in a person's way of thinking. If people change the way they think, then they find then that things will start to turn a little bit more or less in their own favour.
Yeah.
4 or 5 years ago, I remember guys who were fighting and arguing their cases in relation to their own rights. Don't get me wrong, everybody has a right. Everybody has rights as far as the Constitution is concerned. But the Constitution does not provide for the rights of the unmarried parent. The Constitution only protects the married family.
Yeah.
It doesn't protect the family.
But does the Constitution actually state the married family, or does it state the family?
It states the family under under marriage, I think.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, just bear with me. As far as I know, it's the family based on marriage. Just bear with me.
I don't remember reading the word marriage in the Constitution in relation to.
I think you'll find it under Article 42.
You know. I know.
Don't mind me now. I'm singing away. I'm humming away to myself here.
Okay, no, it's just semantics, I know, but it's see, the smallest words can make such a big difference when we're talking about legal documents. You know, so it's.
Right. Let me see. Article 42.
Anyway, while you're looking for that, if anybody wants to ring in and talk about any of their experiences that they've had in relation to family law courts, Dave is pretty much an expert in that area, so if you want to talk to him, you can ring my Skype there. It's Cloud Warrior 1975, and we can add you into the call if you wish to join in the conversation with myself and David from Fact Ireland, which is fathers and children together. Is that right?
That's right, James. But we've more or less expanded over the last few years. We've gone on to our whole principle and our approach is to support the parents, but to protect the child.
Yeah.
And to protect the rights of the child.
Yeah.
And this is what I was just about to say to you. When animosity and conflict occurs between two parents, whether married or not, okay, usually what happens is that the child becomes the tool in the middle. In some cases, in a lot of other cases, the child becomes the bargaining tool.
I can appreciate that. I've been there.
Now, see, parents can turn their argument around and move it from being their right to have what you call it, to have access or contact or whatever it may be with their child. Because any court order that's made in a family law court in relation to contact between a child and a parent, that order is not made for the parents. That's not the parent's order. That's the child's order.
Yeah.
The order is issued by the court to the child. But the court relies on the parents to be as amicable with each other as possible to facilitate that contact. It's a child's right to have contact with its parents.
Mm-hmm.
It's never the parent's right. It's always the child's right. And nobody has a right to interfere or to violate that.
Okay.
Unless, for some reason or another, it can be shown that it is detrimental to the welfare of the child, that contact with an individual or with a parent would be so detrimental to the welfare of the child that it would not be within the best interest or beneficial to the welfare of the child to allow that contact to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's always, people need to change their way of thinking. They should always base their argument always from the right of the child's perspective.
Mm.
If they demonstrate to a court that they are seeking what they believe is in the best interest of their child and what is right for their child, then sometimes it can change the attitude of the actual judge who's hearing the case.
Mm-hmm.
Because it shows to the judge that this individual is not coming before me and saying to me, he has a right for X, Y, and Z. I want this and I want that. It's a case of this individual is placing the best interest and the rights of their child before the court, mm-hmm. and they're asking the court to adjudicate on it.
So what you're saying, Dave, is any fathers going in as a lay litigant, if they go into court with the attitude that I'm here for the best interests of my son or my daughter, regardless of anything else, and that's really all that I care about, that you get a much better hearing from the judge rather than going in saying, I want to see my son on Tuesday between 4 and 7 and on Saturday between 10 and 5 because I'm playing golf then on Sunday.
That's right. Now you have it. Now you have it. It's a case of, put your own needs secondary to that of your own child.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But also, here's another tip for anybody who's acting as a lay litigant. And this is from my own experience, okay? What I have discovered is everybody who goes before a judge, they have this assumption that a judge knows the law. Yes, in theory, yes, they do know the law, but they don't know every bit of it.
Yes.
Okay? There's so much of the law there, it would be impossible for any single person to be able to remember it all word for word. Okay?
Yeah.
So what has to happen is this. Before any person goes in before a judge, they need to be prepared and need to be clear on what they're looking for. They need to stay with the facts, keep their questions brief, and stick to the point. Judge will always respect any person who's coming before them and who is in a position not to waste the court's time. Because just remember, every time a person goes before a judge in the district court on family law, the time is very, very small. You have, I think it's about 15 minutes before the judge presents your case, right?
Okay, I just want to stop you there now. What does that mean, present your case?
Well, what happens is when you're going in before a judge, how you present your argument or your case before the court, what you're actually looking for, right, will determine on the outcome of your case. So my suggestion to people out there is this. If you put the law before the judge, if you base your case on law and on law only, and you place that law before the judge has no other choice but to go with it. He can't argue with it. He can't disregard it. He has to accept it.
Now,
a judge relies on the parties coming before him.
Now, Dave, he has to accept it based on what? Based on your words, or does he have to go off and check it?
No. What you do is okay, I'll give you an example in relation to Irish District Court matter going on in the courts at the moment. Okay?
Yeah.
And what I've done is I've submitted my application in what we term as in an affidavit format. Okay? Which is that in that affidavit I have outlined legal text based on Constitution, based on European law, based on rules and regulations that other parties who are involved in the case have to abide by. If you clearly outline the legal argument that supports your case, a judge can only accept it. He can't disregard it. He or she can't disregard it. I can't argue with it. Why? Because it's the law, and a judge can only enforce the law. That's their job. They're there to enforce the law. Okay? Yeah. They rely on the parties coming before him or her, right, to assist them in being able to make the decision that they feel would be, that they want the judge to make in their case. And the only way a judge can be assisted is if you put the law before the judge.
So you need to be more learned than the judge?
Yeah.
In that particular subject matter?
Yes.
Which is really unreachable for the average person.
It is. Because when you start delving into case law, precedent law, European law, decisions made in the ECJ, and you start researching all of that, and then go into the statute, you go into the legislation, and you go into other resources that are there, the amount of information that's there is unbelievable. And it's too much for any one person to be able to read it all off from the top of their head. So all you do is you research in law what is actually affecting you in relation to your case. So let's say, for example, okay, I'll give you an example. Your child has been denied contact with you. Okay? Mm-hmm. Right. Any person who denies contact with a child, any person who refuses contact or denies contact between a child and a natural parent, right? Make it as short and as simple as I can. Is a violation of the child's rights under Article 16 of the 2003 Human Rights Act, and it's a violation of the child's right under Article 8 of the ECHR.
What's ECHR?
It's the European Court of Human Rights.
Right.
right? You place those two legal, is what's called legal text, in a legal argument before a district court, and the judge can't argue with you. It's just the same as, okay, there's another one.
In a district court?
Yes, you can use it in the district court, yes.
Okay. And
right?
Will a judge
now,
listen to it though?
Yes, they will. Because why? You're putting the law before them. This is the law, judge. I want you to uphold the law. If he doesn't, then you just JR them to the High Court. Simple.
Judicial review?
Yes, immediately, straight away.
Okay. Now
there is another one.
Can't put in a comment there. Shouldn't the parents be asked what they want?
Well, it all depends, because sometimes, no, to be honest, the child, whatever the wishes of the child come, or the wishes of the parents, or what the parents want or need, come secondary to that of the child.
Okay.
Right? It's always what's best for the child. Because sometimes when you start putting the needs of the parents before the child, what happens is that it ends up in a situation where one parent is turning around and saying that that they're not happy with one thing that the other parent is doing, or the other parent is saying, well, I don't want that parent having this, I want that, and before you know it, the child is forgotten about it.
Yeah.
It's not about what the parent wants. It's about what's best for the child. A child has a right to be involved and to be cared for and to be reared by both its parents, not just one, but by both of them. And sometimes, if people out there can just use their own, with some parents, if you could just bang their heads together and just say, here, look, wake up for a minute. You don't have to go to court to sort this all out. This can all be sorted out outside of court. It can be sorted within the space of 6 months if the two parents are amicable enough and civil enough with each other that they can actually sit in the same room and sort it out between them.
Yeah.
But the only one thing that's driving it into the courts, and this is an issue right across the board, is as soon as a mother applies to the court in relation to any matter involving her child against the father of the child, the first thing the solicitor sees is money.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that's driving the family law in this country, is maintenance. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to pay to see your child.
No.
Maintenance and access are separated. It's not access, it's contact. Maintenance and contact with a child are two separate issues. They don't come together. They're not a payoff. So whether you pay maintenance or not, if you don't pay maintenance, the child still has a right to be able to see their parent.
Yeah.
Maintenance is a completely separate issue, but it's the one thing that's driving the family law system in this country, is the maintenance issue.
Okay. So the problem that we face, David, is that the state, as it's now known as the nanny state, is treating adults through legislation like their children as well.
There you go.
Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Would you agree with that?
I would 100%, James. Yes, I would. I would 100%.
And at the start of my show, I talked about an incident that happened in Waterford this week that I can't talk about in detail for good reason. But my argument is that if a guard is of the mind that he is the law, that he can use legislation in any way he wants to enforce his own particular agenda. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would. And look, to be honest with you, James, the Gardaí are not the only state let's say, agents that have a habit and that are known to do things like that as well. Do you know what I mean? There are other state agents who use the law to their own what you would call, to their own amusement, as I would say, to benefit their own cause rather than benefiting the cause that they're supposed to be that they're supposed to represent. Okay. I'll take into example is the HSE.
Yeah.
Okay. Now everybody knows, and that you can never pick up a paper at all recently or turn on the news where there isn't something about the HSE on it. Okay, particularly in relation to childcare. Okay. When a child is taken into care, right? The HSE seek an application under Section 13 of the Child Care Act, okay, which is what's called an emergency care order. Now, the HSE only have to, and this is, I'll give you a brief description of the wording of it. But the first line of wording of their applications, and it's on them all, okay, is where the applicant believes that the child that the child may be or is currently being subjected to either emotional, psychological or sexual abuse, that it will be detriment not for the court to make a court or to issue an order and to take the child into care.
Yeah.
Okay? So, like the guards, they only have to believe. And that word is very, very strong and very powerful. They don't have to prove, whether, apart from, I'll leave the guards out of this statement. The HSE do not have to prove anything in a child care case. They only have to present reasonable doubt, just a seed of doubt in the judge's mind. And the first line on their application is a seed of doubt, which is they do believe that the child is being and may be subjected to emotional, psychological, physical or sexual abuse.
You're saying they don't have to have any evidence of it?
No. In the child care case in the district court, the HSE do not prove. Okay, let's say, for example, I'm a HSE social worker, right? And I take your child from you, okay? I can go into court before a judge in a law court. Just remember, it's in Canada, okay? Nobody else is allowed in that courtroom other than the parties involved in the case, right?
Yeah.
I can turn around and I can say that you're a child abuser. Or I can turn around and say that you are a sexual risk to your child.
Right.
And that is what's happening in childcare cases. HSE are taking children into care because, one, it's one of the parties or the parents involved in the case is being accused that he may be a sexual risk to his child, right?
Yeah.
Two, that he may be emotionally abusive to his child. Three, that he may neglect his child, right? They don't have to prove it. They just state it. You are the one who has to prove that you're not.
And how do you disprove it?
You can't, because the HSE have control in the district court. It's their playground. It's where they have control. And if the judge doesn't go with their way of doing things, like what they've done in Waterford before, they'll get rid of the judge.
Right.
And find a judge who will play the game their way.
Well, that's
Waterford is
scary.
Waterford is the only county. This question's been asked by the district court, the president of the district court in Dublin. Okay, why is Waterford the only county or district that has the highest rate of childcare applications being brought before the courts.
So you're talking about collusion at the very highest level here.
Yes. I sat in on a case, I was up in Dublin there just before Christmas. I was in the High Court. And I was sitting in the courtroom, and it was known as the minors list. And I was listening to cases that were being relation to children who were taken into care by the HSE. Right? Guess where those children are now?
Go on.
The HSE have sold them over to Scotland.
Sold them?
Yes, they were sold to the Child Protection Services in Scotland.
How do you sell children? How does
The
that happen?
HSE are paying the social services in Scotland to keep these children.
Why would they send them overseas?
There's no room for, there's no one, they haven't got anybody here to take them. There's nowhere here in this country to take them.
So they sell them?
Yes.
When you say they sell them, I mean, where is the payout for them?
For every child that's in care in this country, the state, it costs the state or the taxpayer 68,000 a year for every child in state care.
Okay.
Right? And that's not including the bonuses that go on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
And the person that receives that receives it tax-free.
Okay. And is there any sort of vetting for anyone that takes on children?
Well, initially they're supposed to be. And as we recently have discovered through certain media sources, it has been learnt that children are being placed into care of individuals and people who have not been vetted, who have had criminal records, who have been involved in drug gangs and God knows whatever else, who have, I think there's a more recent one where a guy was actually convicted of paedophilia.
Are you serious?
Yes. And this guy was given the care of 3 children.
Oh my God.
Now, but there is a vetting procedure that has to be followed, but it's supposed to be followed once a year. They're supposed to, the foster carers are supposed to be, or whatever, or residential units or whatever the children are they are supposed to be reviewed and monitored every year, but not if they're private. If a child is in a private residential unit, then they're not vetted. They're not audited.
Mm-hmm.
HICWA is the organisation in Ireland that carries out what you would call inspections or reviews on services run by the HSE in Ireland. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And just recently, I've had communication from from Pat Bergen, and he's the head inspector for HICWA. Now, what he's informed me is this: is that unless it's under the remit of the health service executive, right? Unless it's state run, the centre that I was asking him to investigate, they don't have the powers to investigate him.
Wow.
It's only if it's a statutory body. If it's run by the state, then they do have the powers to investigate. But you know as well as I do, it's when something seriously goes wrong and then the state requests a independent investigation, then HICWA will go in and do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But until that happens, a child could be in a private residential unit and it could be abused on a daily basis. And HICWA can't go in and do anything about it. They can't go near the place unless basically they are ordered to do so, or they're requested by the state to do so.
Yeah. It's shocking, isn't it?
It is, yes, it is. And the thing about it is there is a rule book. Like, I mean, we deal with cases where children are being taken into HSE care on a regular basis. Okay, and I don't agree with how the HSE operate, and I don't agree with the way they do things. Particularly when they go to the harsh decision immediately from the first off, when they're involved in any family, is they immediately move to remove the child.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's a lecture in Cork, in the she's a law lecturer there in Cork. Her name is Ursula Kilkelly. And she wrote a brilliant piece of paperwork on in relation to children in care, and it's called it's the Judicial Studies Institute Journal. Okay, and there's a nice piece there in relation to where the ECJ made a ruling that under European law, okay, when the HSE decide that they want to seek a full care order to maintain a child in its care up until the age of 18, right? A full care order does not mean exactly what it says. If you understand what I'm saying, James.
Right.
A full care order is not what it says. As far as the European courts of justice are concerned, a full care order is only a full care order when the state has failed to allow the child to be maintained and cared for in its natural family environment. In other words, the state must satisfy that they have provided all the resources at their disposal to assist the family to care and provide for the child.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
only when that is failed, and only when it's failed, then shall a full care order become what it says. But reunification should always be the ultimate goal in any application for a full care order involving a child.
Okay, so what you're saying is that they just bypass all that and they just kind of go, well, we believe that the child is at risk from sexual misconduct or mental or whatever, emotional misconduct, and that's the reasons why we're going to remove the child based on no evidence whatsoever. So they don't even go there. They don't even try to exhaust all avenues. They just step in and just go, we're taking those kids and that's it.
That's it. Yes. There you have it. That's it. Now,
is this happening all over the country?
it is. Yes, it is.
In every county.
It is. Yeah, it is.
How long has this been going on?
It's been going on. By my reckoning and by the figures that we obtained last year. Okay, to give you an idea. Okay, these are the figures of children taken into care in a 3-year period.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, between the years of 2007 and the year 2010. In Ireland alone, there were 5,665 children taken into the care of the state.
In 2010?
Between 2007 and 2010.
In 3 years. 5,600 and something?
Yes.
Wow.
Now, you tell me now, James, right? For that number of children to be taken into the care of the state in this country, right? What's going on? What is wrong? What is going wrong here? Okay? The state, what are the state doing to support these families and to support these families to ensure that the children remain in the home?
Well, can I ask you a question? How many of those kids get back into the care of the family again?
That now is another question, because the HSE, there's one or two cases we're involved with at the moment, and where a child was taken into the care of the state when she was 8 years old. Now she wants to go back home. She wants to move back home to with her mother. Okay, and the HSE have threatened the child, have told her that if she doesn't do as she's told, that they will seek an order to have her what's the word to use? To have her committed.
Have a child committed?
Yes.
What age is she now?
She's 15.
Right. Okay.
I know you're finding it very hard to digest that, but that's an actual fact.
Yeah. Look, I'm not knocking you. Like, I mean, I'm sure that your statistics are bang on, Dave. I've met you numerous times now, and I know that you don't quote stuff unless you can back it up. Like, so it's.
Yes.
I'm just rubbing my head here, kind of going, this is just shocking. It's shocking. It's like it's like something out of some sort of twisted, novel. To be honest with you,
you see, James, the one thing that parents come up against when they are involved in legal proceedings surrounding the care of their child, okay, is this: when the HSE go into court and they get a care order, they then turn around and look for an order from the court for the parent to undergo what's called an assessment. Okay? It's what you call a risk assessment or a parental capacity assessment. Now, the HSE will not allow, or they will fight tooth and nail if it's asked by the parents' counsel or solicitor to seek an independent professional to undertake that assessment on behalf of the court. Why? Because the HSE have their own people to do these things.
Yeah.
So those people who the HSE have, who carry out this work for them, okay, the HSE is their bread and butter.
Yeah.
So, if you follow me, so of course they're going to turn around and give the HSE exactly what they're looking for. Because if they don't, it's putting their bread and butter at risk.
Yeah.
So sometimes when a risk assessment is asked for by the HSE, it can take up to 6 to 9 months before an appointment can be made available. And then even at that, before even a report is even completed, it can take up to another 6 to 9 months.
Yeah.
So before you know it, 2 years have passed by.
Mm-hmm.
So the HSE have everything in their own corner. They have these psychologists, they have these psychiatrists, they have these psychotherapists. They have all of these people in their back pocket. And if the HSE want to tell the court that this person is a danger and a risk to children, well, they have the resources to be able to help them to show that to the court.
Mm-hmm.
And they have an endless fountain of money. So they can hold up a case in court as long as they want.
Where okay, right. Here's a question, right? In every aspect of society now in relation to the state's coffers, right? That with austerity, they're cutting back money left, right and centre for everything, right? Do they not cut back the money that is used to institutionalize children as well?
No.
Why not?
They only cut back the money that they use to support the family.
You don't cut back the legal Eagles funds?
No.
The HSC.
Do you know how much the HSC spent last year on legal fees?
No idea.
This was only in relation to childcare applications. This is a national figure.
Okay.
150,000.
Okay.
That was their legal bill in childcare matters last year. 150,000 euro. Could you imagine what 150,000 euro would do for a lot of people in this country? Particularly in relation to, like, if you take, as I said earlier on, between 65 and 68,000 a year, is paid to a foster parent to keep a child. Okay.
You sure it's not 150 million you're talking about now rather than 150,000? That doesn't sound right.
No, as far as I know, it was only 150,000.
They only spent 150,000.
Yep.
Legal fees, the whole HSC for the year.
That's what no, let me correct that.
Right.
Let me correct that. Just hold on.
That couldn't be right.
Just hold on.
That doesn't.
I opened up the document here.
That has to be millions.
Oh no, James. Yes, you've corrected me there. Yes, it's 150 million euro.
Yes, that'll make more sense.
Yes.
Because the HSC's budget for the year would be something like, I don't know, 10 was it 10 million or something like that, or no. My guess would be 10 billion.
Their budget is so big that it keeps increasing every year.
Well,
and the Department of Justice and the Finance Department always make what you call make sure that whatever budget that the Child Protection Services require is actually made available.
Yeah. From what I'm aware, that the two biggest budgets for the state is the social welfare and the HSC are they're the two biggest budgets separately.
Yes.
Now expenditure for the state.
Yes, it is. That's right. Yeah. That is right. But I'm not a person. Don't get me wrong, James. But when it comes to what you call it, pennies and pounds and euros, it's not what you would call an area that I personally delve into. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I do have. You met her there 2 weeks ago at the meeting, Geraldine in our administration office.
Yeah.
Now that would be Geraldine's side of things to look into.
Yeah.
Which is I'm sure, like, you mean if I picked up the phone to her in the morning, she'd be able to give me a full report on the whole thing.
150 million, David, on legal costs is absolutely astronomical money.
Yes.
If you look at the austerity, right, that is being pushed on the Irish people year in, year out, and has been since 2008, since the financial collapse globally, that every single year it's the poor are the ones that are getting crucified. It's the social welfare payments are getting cut. It's the children's allowance are getting cut. It's the single mothers' payments are getting cut. It's the pensions are getting cut. It's all the allowances for fuel and this and that and everything else is getting cut. Now the IMF are talking about means testing, the medical card, which I agree with, by the way, to a certain point.
The over 70s?
No, I agree with it for people who have a lot of wealth, right? And the means testing, fine, I have no problem with that. Do you know what I mean? But the problem is when you bring in something like a means test, right, for the state legislator, when they start bringing in stuff like that, or the state controlling body, when they start means testing stuff, see, that gives them a license then to start putting the squeeze on the groups that they really want to target. And as you know, the wealthy are not the ones that they target. It's never the wealthy.
No.
All you have to do, like I just stated, is look at where the austerity measures have been for the last number of years. It's always been the poor that have been crucified.
Yes, that's right.
It's not
that
the wealthy. Right. Where's the wealth tax? Where's that coming?
I don't know, James. I don't know. To be honest, the way I look at it is this. is I believe there should be a means test on the children's allowance. I believe that people who are on 150,000 or 200,000 a year shouldn't have children's allowance.
Of course they shouldn't have it. What's it needed for?
Politicians shouldn't even have it.
No. What's it needed for?
They don't need it. You know what I mean? They should voluntarily and willingly hand it back. You know what I mean? But the children's allowance payment should actually be means tested, because it should only be given to those who really need it, rather than making it an automatic universal right to have it.
Yeah. My understanding of all of the very scary stuff that you're outlining there, David, that you have to deal with on a regular basis because you are completely and utterly immersed in what you're doing, right? My understanding is that when you have a big governing body like the HSC, which it's amalgamated from all of the Eastern Health, or sorry, the health boards, or the regional health boards that were brought together into HSC, right? When you do that, what happens is that really nobody is accountable for anything.
No, because even.
Can you talk about that for a minute?
Sorry.
Can you talk about that? Can you talk about that like?
Yes, I agree. Accountability is very, 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 very scarce within the confines of the HSE, because if an employee of the HSE, and I use this as an example, okay? If an employee of the HSE, take a social worker, okay, has made a decision or has abused their position, has overstepped their authority as their role as a social worker, okay, and this is laughable, right? When you make a complaint, when you want to seek a complaint in respect of, let's say, a child is in care, the child is being abused by a person that they're in care with, the care of. You have spoken to the social worker who is assigned to deal with the case. You've brought numerous concerns in respect of how this child is being cared for by this individual, but yet this social worker just ignores your concerns. So you go genuinely and you follow up and you make a complaint. And I'll give you an example. This has happened recently. A complaint was sent about the HSE in Waterford, okay, to Gordon Jays, who is the National Director of Child and Family Services in Ireland, okay, to James Riley, who is the Minister for Health,
yeah,
to Kathleen Fitzgerald, I believe, who is the now Minister for Children's Services,
yeah,
to Pat Healy, who is also a National Director for Child and Family Services in Cork, okay? Every one of them were sent the same complaint, right? And what happened to that complaint was redirected to the manager of the HSE in Waterford, okay? That manager then directed that complaint to the principal social worker, okay, of the social worker who the complaint has been made about.
Mm-hmm.
And that principal social worker is a team leader in the case that social worker is involved in. So what's happening is, when you make a complaint against a social worker, who's investigating the complaint for you?
Go on.
Social workers. They investigate themselves. So of course, as soon as that happens, you find out that it's a case of, you know exactly what the decision is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to back up each other. And yes, this is where accountability is massively important. There is no accountability in the HSE. There is no accountability in any statutory body. None of them.
It just comes full circle, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's like a dog chasing its tail. It just doesn't stop until the dog gets tired. And that's set up for a reason.
Yeah.
Because they hope that when you make a complaint, they'll fob you off with some sort of final decision or excuse, and they hope it will go away.
Can I ask you a question? Has any social worker been prosecuted for abuse of their position in recent years?
Now, and that question is actually I'm amazed you've actually brought up that question, because in relation to a legal matter that I'm currently involved in, okay, and I've only recently discovered it, right? Okay. When you take a case against, okay, when a social worker is involved with the HSE and they engage in their role as what they're assigned to do behind the, what I would call the banner of the HSE, okay?
Mm-hmm.
They cannot be held accountable, nor can they be prosecuted.
Mm-hmm. Crazy.
They cannot be held legally responsible for any decision that they make when they are engaged in their role as a social worker of the HSE.
But that's called corporate personhood.
If you want to prosecute, you must prosecute the HSE.
That's called corporate personhood.
Yes.
Where the corporation is not. The corporation has all the rights of a person, but none of the responsibilities.
Yeah. So it's a case of, you know what I mean, they are very well, what we call it, they're very well protected, and they've got a good smoke screen to hide behind. But saying that, on a lighter side, okay, there is a new I did have the name of it. There's a new register coming, being made. There's what you call, it's a health professionals register. I don't know if you've heard of this.
No.
And every social worker in Ireland by October of this year must be registered on this site, right, or with this service, okay? And they are, I believe, an independent authority and an independent body to deal with complaints involving individual social workers.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, if a social worker is not registered on this service, then they can't practice, or can't, what's the word? They can't practice their profession as a social worker.
So it's
they
it's like the ombudsman for the Gardaí for the HSE. Is that what they're setting up? Is it?
More or less, yeah. But it's help. It covers all professionals in the area of health.
Okay.
Which social work service, the childcare service comes under it.
But what you could do is go after the man or the woman outside of the HSC for any sort of breach under common law. You could do that.
Well, I've tried it, and a judge has knocked me on it already.
Has he? When did you try that?
I tried it about 4 weeks ago.
Did you?
I did. I tried it. I was going after it was a case where the HSE are in breach of a court order, okay, and where an individual within the HSE has given an instruction to their legal team not to comply with that court order, okay,
yeah,
and they're not prepared or willing to comply with it. So what I done was I sought to go after them for what is called what's it called again? It'll come back to me in a minute.
Yeah, what exactly did you do? Just tell us about what happened in the court, or what did you look for?
What happened was I stood up in the court 4 weeks ago, and I informed the judge that the HSC are in breach of a court order, that I want the name of the individual who is giving the direct or instruction to the solicitors, not to comply with this order, and I want that individual brought here before this court, and I want them to face prosecution for breach or for violating an order of the court.
Yeah.
And the judge turned around then and then very kindly informed me that an individual cannot be what did he say? An individual cannot be prosecuted for failing to comply or whatever it may be. What he maintained to me was that it was the HSE that my argument was with, not with the individual.
Okay, so he's talking about contracts again. He's talking about corporations again. That's where you go back to there. So what you were doing there, Dave, is you were going. Hold on a second now. Common law, right? This is common law, right? This is law of the land, which is all intertwined with all the commercial law, right? Under common law, I want to hold this individual as the man or the woman. I want to hold them responsible for their breach of the law, the actual law, right?
Yes.
And what he heard was that you want to take someone that's acting in a role, and you want to take that individual and bring him into common law jurisdiction. And what he turned around to you and said was, actually, no, you can't do that. And he's actually right, because the reasons why you can't do that is because that, as far as he's concerned, that he was talking about someone acting in a role which falls under the corporate law, and that he'll always refer you back to then the higher office of that corporate identity, which is the HSC. So the only way I can see you actually doing that, in my very inexperienced knowledge in this area, would be to take an individual case against him, and find out yourself who it is, and bring an individual case against the man. Find out where he lives, and summons that particular individual, the man, to court under common law.
I tell you, James, if we were to find out where social workers were living in this country, do you know what? Yeah, we see London Bridge about maybe way back in maybe 100 years ago or more, or maybe even going back further, back in the 1800s. What I used to do with people with what's it called? For trees, and they used to hang them off a London Bridge, didn't they? Yeah. Yeah, well, if people were to find out where social workers or childcare managers were living, we've seen that as well. We've seen a lot of them hanging off a bridge somewhere. Yeah. Because the people in this country are so angry with them, it's unnatural. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because, individuals who are employed by or behind the banner of the HSE, they use it to hide behind, to protect themselves. It's the same as the in-camera. Like the in-camera, they hide behind the in-camera. They have a tendency to use Section 31 of the Child Care Act to hide behind. Okay, but yet if you read it, Section 31 only protects the identity of the child from being broadcasted or published. It doesn't provide protection to any other individual in any matter involving childcare.
So that's been abused as well. That's been abused as well.
It is, yes, big time. Yeah.
It's like a blanket protection for everybody.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
come here. I'm going to go to a song. I don't want to finish talking to you. I think we're only getting really into the conversation. To be honest with you, I don't want to finish this, but I want to give the listeners a break because it's very heavy stuff. So I'm just going to go to a quick song, and we'll get you back on in a couple of minutes' time. Is that okay with you?
No problem. Give me enough time to grab a cup of coffee there.
Yeah, I will do. No problem. Here's a song, Bruce Springsteen, Better Day. You back in the house there?
Can you hear me?
Hello, you back?
Yeah, we're back, yeah.
Okay. I've looked up something that came up in the chat box there, something called vicarious liability. Have you heard of that before?
Precarious liability, is it?
Vicarious liability.
Yeah, I just copped that, but what's it in reference to though?
Vicarious liability is a form of strict secondary liability that arises under the common law doctrine of agency respondeat superior, responsibility of the superior for the acts of the subordinate, or, in a broader sense, the responsibility of any third party that had the right, ability, or duty to control the activities of a violator. It can be distinguished from contributory liability, another form of secondary liability which is rooted in the tort theory of enterprise liability. Employers are vicariously liable under the respondeat superior doctrine for negligent acts or omissions by their employees in the course of employment, sometimes referred to as scope of employment. For an act to be considered within the course of employment, it must either be authorised or be so connected with an authorised act that it can be considered a mode through an improper mode of performing it. Courts sometimes distinguish between an employee's detour or frolic. For instance, an employer may be held liable if it is shown that the employee had gone on a mere detour in carrying out their duties, whereas an employee acting in his or her own right rather than on the employer's business is undertaking a frolic and will not subject the employer to liability.
But do you know what the major problem is? Even if you were to use that against a HSE employee or their employers, one of the biggest problem that blocks people from going after the individual.
Go on.
Is the in-camera rule.
Okay. But you just said to me that it only applies to the child in the strict
Yeah.
sense of law.
Right, but the actions of any case, okay, where the HSE are involved, once it enters the legal remit, anything that occurs, anything that goes on in relation to that case remains under the in-camera. That's why if there's anybody out there who's ever tried to apply through the Freedom of Information or the Data Protection Act to seek access to information or documentation that may, let's say, support them in pursuing a individual case against an individual, what will happen is the response they will get back is that specific documentation or information they're seeking is one, is legal privileged, or two, is in camera, therefore can't be released.
Mm-hmm.
In order to save time, when you want to bring a complaint against an individual in the HSE, okay, and seek and to hold that individual personally responsible for the decisions and for the actions they have taken for their involvement in relation to your case, what you do first and foremost is you must first access documentation that you believe that is in their possession that will help support your argument. And in order for you to do that, what you do is you bring an application before the court under the Civil Liabilities Act 2004, Section 8, subsection 8, Section 40, which allows you to bring an application before the court for the court to make an order to order the other party to make a discovery or a disclosure of the documentation and information that the person requires to be released to them. Mm-hmm. Once that then allows you to lift legally the in-camera from your case to allow you to pursue what you want to pursue. Mm-hmm. But until you do that, everything is in camera.
Yeah, it's a minefield.
It is, yeah.
Absolute minefield. How many years did it take you to get your head around this stuff? What?
Sorry for laughing there, James.
Jeez, how many years, man?
Do you know what? Look, tell you what, I'm at this now. What? Say maybe I'm at this now. This is 2012. Say I'm at this now. Say going on 5 years now.
Okay.
And you know what? I'm still learning. And that's the problem. That's the one thing about this. You keep learning no matter what you do. You keep learning as you go along. You can never learn it all because there's always something new comes up that allows you to keep learning of it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So if somebody turns around and says that they know it all, do you know what I mean? I'm sorry, but no, they can't. It's impossible for everybody to know everything.
Can I ask you a question?
You can.
with the experience that you've had, been in and out of the courts for so long, right? Do you see cracks appearing in the system? Do you see the system itself collapsing? As in the legal system dealing with all this stuff.
Okay. No, if we allow our government to keep running the way, our so-called government, if we allow and permit our government to keep running our country the way it's currently being run, then no. Because if you look at the makeup of the politicians in Dáil Éireann and in the Oireachtas, okay, they're all former barristers and solicitors.
That's right, yeah.
The majority of them, okay?
Or accountants. Or school teachers. School teachers.
Yes, right, and probably maybe there's the odd one or two bankers hidden in there somewhere.
Yeah.
That probably that we don't know about yet, right?
Yeah.
But see, they are not going to change something that upsets the cartwheel.
No, that's not the question that I'm asking you, right? The question that I'm asking you is the cracks appearing as in from the weight of the public dissent, right? As in people like me and you and Vinny and everybody else that's out there that are targeting the system, right? That are picking at it, picking, educating ourselves about how it works and where all the flaws are, because we're the only ones that can see it, because if you're in the system you can't see it, the faults, because you don't want to see them because you're living it, right? So it's really up to us. It's up to us to kind of go, well, hold on a second now. We're the people. We are the people. We make up the people, right? So if we can't get this sorted, then who the hell is going to do it? Because like you've been explaining for the last hour, that there's no responsibility for anything anybody does in that horrible monstrosity of a system, which is the HSC and also the legal system too, where the same thing goes on in the four courts in Dublin, where nobody takes any responsibility for anything. It gets passed from one court to another. So you know, if we can't find the cracks and stick a wedge in there, right, then there is no hope for anybody. That's my point of view.
Okay, I would say there is what you would call, within the last year, there may have been a hairline fracture as far as the childcare services are concerned in this country.
Right.
All right. Take, for example, I think the first thing that actually set it off would have been the Mackenzie case that was dealt with up in Dublin there before Christmas, where a young 17-year-old lad was found dead. He was after being murdered, and he was in the care of the state. If you remember that, James?
Yeah, I do.
The ruling that the High Court judge made on that now, do you know what I mean? That ruling was very, very, what you would call, was very interesting, because it goes back to the point of accountability, right?
Yeah.
And the decision of that judge, let's say, created what was called an opening to make the HSE more accountable and responsible for their actions. Now, in relation to the children in state care, going back, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, that recent report, where they initially said, first of all, I think when it first came to light, it was something like the HSE were claiming that it was 60-something children who died in the care of the state. And then it went from that then up to, I think it was 112. And then it went from that up to 196. And I believe there's, even now they're saying 196, I believe there's a lot more, right?
Yeah.
That's caused a crack, as I say, a hairline crack. But if you know very, very quickly, when the report was actually released recently in relation to that specific matter, our government was very, very quick in coming out and announcing that there will be a children's rights referendum taking place in this country this autumn, okay? And as well as they're also looking to bring in line with the Constitution both the district and the circuit court, and there's a referendum coming up on that. So every time there's a crack, as you were saying a few minutes ago, people have been picking at the heels of this for a very long time, and as soon as a hairline crack appears, and if that hairline crack is going to cause a massive what do you call it?
Deluge.
Volcanic eruption. What's going to happen is that we have the government then, or the ministers coming out and making an announcement or a statement that completely, sidelines everybody's attention from what was going on, and more or less overclouds the issue with something else that. Let's say, for example, the state are using this report that was released in relation to the deaths of children in care to support their referendum for the upcoming referendum in relation to the specific individual rights for all children on the island of Ireland, right? Yeah. They're very good at covering up whenever a crack appears in the system, and when it does, they come out very quickly to patch it up. You know what I mean? Yeah. They create what's called, if I use the right word, a smoke screen.
Yeah.
To distract their attention, they attract their attention to something else and distract their attention from what the real issue is.
Sure. So it's up
I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, no, that's very good. So it's up to us, David, to just keep the pressure on and to keep, talking to people and putting it out there and into the public consciousness, like doing radio shows like this, and because you're not going to get it out in the mainstream media. The mainstream media. There's a question for you. Have you had anything published at all in the mainstream media at all, locally or nationally?
Usually when we're launching a new project or something like that, we would. But when it comes to highlighting specific issues that should be within the public domain, we're told they are very careful. Do you know what I mean? Very, very careful, because they're talking to the solicitors before they even consider publishing it.
Okay.
Which is another problem, James. And as far as the national media is concerned, no, we don't. We have never got nothing published or printed on a national basis. Do you know what I mean? And to be honest with you, I wouldn't be interested in it, because the simple reason being is a lot of our national media providers, they're owned by the state. They're controlled by the state.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So they are not, and I'm not going to mention one in particular, but they're not going to run something or publish something that's going to affect or interfere with their budget or with the funding that they get from the state every year.
No. And that's the problem that we have when everything is centralised.
Yes. Now, to go back onto I just want to just hit on this problem. When you were mentioning earlier on in relation to the amount of funding that the HSE or the childcare services receive every year, right, and the cost in relation to their legal bills, right? And when you were mentioning about all this, the fact that it's the poorest of the poor who get affected.
Yeah.
And just to kind of to reflect on that, the legal aid board, okay, if you know what they are,
yeah,
right, their budget is after being hit twice.
Sure.
Within the last year.
Yeah.
Okay. They have reduced their manpower. They have reduced the number of solicitors that they have working for them. They have, let's say, for example, if you have a case in the district court and you want to seek an appeal to the circuit court,
yeah,
they no longer provide a legal aid cert to provide you with counsel.
Mm-hmm.
That's gone.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to bring a matter to the High Court, unless you're able to do it yourself, the Legal Aid Board won't fund or won't be able to,
since when, Dave?
can't provide a cert. What?
Since when is that gone?
Since since after the budget.
It's serious.
Yes. Literally, which this again, like what you were saying, the poorest of the poor are actually affected again. Because why? Because of the limits that are available, because of the limitations that the Legal Aid Board have, okay, from what you call in relation to the budget that they get in respect of providing legal aid certs to people who can't afford to provide their own legal representation, and it restricts a person's access to It does. It prevents a person from accessing the accessing justice in this country.
Yeah.
Because unless you really know what you're doing yourself, if you want to go and do it yourself, fine, by all means, off you go. But if you haven't a clue and you're dependent on a solicitor, unless you can save money and probably the value of a house or so, do you know what I mean, to hire private legal representation,
yeah,
your right to proper access to justice in this country has been severely damaged and severely denied.
So it's becoming more like America now. I read an article out about what's going on in America there at the start of the show, and it's gone very, very, very violent over there now. You know, it's more and more people are buying more guns and stuff, and the guns have doubled. The gun purchases have doubled since that killing in Colorado there in the cinema. You know, it's the situation is now so out of control over there, right? Because their centralised government is so bloody big. That is like the macro of the micro of Ireland. See, we don't know here. We don't. The mainstream media never ever publishes any of the stuff. This is so vital, the stuff that you're telling us here tonight on the radio, because it's not published. You don't hear about it. You never hear about it. It's so many people around the country that are suffering so badly, and they don't know what to do. They find themselves in a very, very difficult situation. For kids are taken off them, and they go for legal aid because they're just an average Joe, and they don't have the money to go and fund some sort of court case. And then if they do it, even if they have the funds to go and do it, they're up against a solicitor that's only interested in making as much money as they can out of them. And even if they get some sort of halfway decent solicitor, the problem that they're facing is that there's no actual collective responsibility for anything that goes wrong, or no sense of justice within the family law situation, where if your kids are taken off you based on no evidence, like you said, that there's really very little hope to get these kids back again. It's just I'm just absolutely shocked, absolutely it's just words. I don't have the words to describe how I feel about the plight of so many people around the country. And you're just talking about Waterford. I mean, this is going on all over the country.
Yes, which is what I would say is this, and I'm always forever saying this. It is time people in this country woke up and really saw and realised what's going on their own front doorstep. Because it doesn't affect them. Like, I mean, people have this attitude, well, because it doesn't affect me, why should I care? But I'm sorry, that's not the attitude to have, and it's not. I don't swallow that type of attitude. The thing about it is this: it affects everybody. It will affect everybody, and if this so-called referendum on children's rights gets passed in this country, then every family in this country is in big trouble. Because I know earlier on you were saying that you had a couple of other guests lined up to come in on the show tonight, and I don't want to be kind of like as I say,
I know I have
hogging the airwaves all night long. You know what I mean? It would be unfair to them. But I want to hit on this children's rights referendum, and I think this is very, very serious, and people should actually sit up and pay attention. Okay, and people in Ireland should actually wake up.
Yeah. There's a question here from Vinny. Do you have any information in relation to the witchcraft crowd involved in child snatching? Have you come across that?
Witchcraft crowd?
Yeah.
No. Sorry, babe.
Okay.
It's something I don't follow witchcraft.
Okay.
Or voodoo or anything like that.
Yeah, it's just.
I don't go down.
I think it's all about Wicca, which is a religion itself, which is not. From what I've studied about Wicca, can be used for good or for bad. It's like a spiritual religion, but the dark elements of that, there seems to be it's like paedophile rings.
Yeah, there is. Yes, I do believe there is one here in Ireland. I do believe that there was a report in a paper, in one of the papers there, about, I'd say about a year ago, where it was discovered that the Gardaí and judges in Ireland have been discovered to be part of some sort of a secret cult, what you call it, in relation to paedophilia in Ireland. They've discovered there is a paedophile ring in Ireland, and senior members of the judiciary and of the law enforcement and other statutory services are believed to be involved.
Where is that report?
I have it on our Facebook page, James, and I'd say you'd have to go back about a year to recover it. I posted it up on our Facebook page about when I got it. Paedophile ring found discovered in Ireland, and it starts off. The headline on it is that high-ranking Gardaí believed to be part of this secret, it's a secret cult. You know what I mean? That's what they were identified as a secret cult.
And this is a report based on evidence?
Well, it was the Sunday World who carried the article.
Seriously?
Yes. What I'll do is when I go offline, I'll go into our Facebook page and I'll hunt it down, and I'll drop you the link on it.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, I'd like to see that. David, can you just quickly go through the upcoming referendum on children's rights before I leave you go?
Okay.
What's involved in that?
Right. What is involved in that is that the government, or our so-called government, are looking to make changes to a specific area of our constitution, and the changes of the area that they're looking to make changes to is Article 42, and they want to add in what is called a section in that in relation to specific children's rights, and to call it Article 42.2 or 42.2a, okay? And to put it in layman's terms and in a language that everybody can understand, it allows for the legal adoption of children who are in long-term care. Okay?
Yeah.
Means is this: any child who is in care currently at the moment, who have been removed from a family who have been married, cannot be lawfully adopted without the consent of the parents. If the parents don't consent, then it doesn't happen.
Okay.
What the state want to do is they want to interfere with the rights that the family have under Article 42 of the Constitution, right? They want to make it legal that when a child is in care for a period of no less than 12 months, that they can lawfully adopt the child out to a new family, therefore removing all association, knowledge, and whatever the word it may be, of the child's natural family. The other side of it is, of the coin, is this. If we allow the children's rights referendum to be passed, it will allow the state more, I would say this, it will remove the powers or the control that a parent has over their child in their home, and the parent will be giving it up to the state. Therefore, the state becoming the guardian of the child. Therefore, allowing the state to be able to go into any home at any time when it suits them to remove a child from that house.
Shocking.
That's what this children's rights referendum is going to be about.
When's that coming up, David?
That is due, it's expected for the autumn. They haven't given a date on it yet, but it's believed to be sometime in October.
Okay, and Cathy Sinner talked about this in detail in a previous interview with me on this show, and she's very, very concerned about it. It's actually coming from the UN.
Yes, that's right. It's, okay, it comes under state intervention. The duty of the state to intervene to support children's rights. Provisions 2.1. For the threshold for the state intervention in family life, the restatement and extension of the existing provision in relation to children and parents contained in Article 42.5 of the Constitution to include children. Bear with me, I just open up the full note that I have on this. Article 42A, 2.1, under the 28th Amendment of the Constitution Bill 2007, in exceptional cases where the parent of any child for physical or moral reasons fail in their duty towards such child, the state as a guardian of the common good by appropriate means shall endeavour to supply the place of the parent, but always with due regard to the natural and imprescriptible rights of child. The UN Convention on the Right of the Child places a positive duty on the state to protect and support children and their families. Most families are positive places for children to grow up. Unfortunately, in some cases, families can be unintentionally or, in rare instances, intentionally damaging places for children. The state's power under the Constitution to intervene in family life depends on the marital status of the children's parents. Marital families under Article 41 and 42.1 grant the rights to marital families which are inalienable. They're absolute,
yeah.
Imprescriptible. Okay? Article 42.5 empowers the state in exceptional circumstances to limit these rights where there has been a failure of duty on the part of the parents for physical or moral reasons. When a court looks at the circumstances of a child of a marital parent, it grants a rebuttable presumption that the child's best interest is served within his or her own family. Now, what's going to happen there is this, is that when this children's rights referendum comes up, and this was the long-time argument, where the state believe that the parents have failed in their duty, and this is the argument, they weren't able to get an agreement on this, and there doesn't seem to be any wording in relation to that yet at the moment, right? Is at what point can the state decide that a parent has failed in their duty to protect a child? Where does the state actually intervene? Does the state intervene because the parents are living below the breadline, but still able to provide the children with the natural care and provide with whatever day-to-day means or needs that a child requires? Or is it because their friend next door has a new pair of runners that their mother and father bought them for €100, and because another child's parents can't afford to buy them one, does the state deem that as the parent's failure to provide for the child?
Yeah.
Where does it, where's the threshold? Where does the line say that, okay, until this happens, then and only then can the state intervene?
Yeah.
And that seems to be the issue at the moment. if the referendum is passed, it's open season.
It seems to be that way, yeah.
Every child in every family in every household, it's open season.
Yeah.
The state can have their pick. And not only will the child be taken into care, but the child can also be adopted out. But not just here in Ireland. The child can be adopted outside the state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is very serious. Do you know what I mean, James? It is very, very serious. And everyone in this country needs to wake up. You know what I mean? And as I say, smell the coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know what I mean, we've already... The government got what they wanted in relation to the fiscal treaty. They got what they wanted in relation to the Lisbon Treaty.
Mm-hmm.
People need to wake up and stand up for what's right, and that is, we don't need the state interfering in any more of our own personal lives than they already are. Mm-hmm. We have, as what Vin played on his broadcast there just before he went off air, and that I was listening to the speech from that woman involved in that issue, and one line that she said, which I agree with her totally. Every one of us have a duty and a responsibility to protect our children mm-hmm. from anything. Mm-hmm. We have a duty and responsibility to protect our children from being, because literally our children are being attacked. And it's our duty as a parent to protect our children.
Yeah.
By whatever means. Do you know what I mean? By whatever means. Mm-hmm. So, because Claire had to go into hiding for that during that short period of time that she was away, I agree with that fact, because she was protecting her child. Mm-hmm. She'd done what she was doing because she was protecting her child.
Yeah. I agree, and I agree, even though I understand where her partner's coming from, even he's completely ignorant to where her viewpoint is and her stance is, because as a single dad myself, I can understand his own particular situation and his rights to see his kid too. But in saying that, you know, I'd be devastated myself if through ignorance that I tried to force my ex into getting my son inoculated against her will and the child's will, where he wouldn't have the intelligence to make a decision on it himself. I'd be devastated if I found out at a later date that I ended up poisoning my child or creating autism or creating some sort of horrible dysfunction in the child's well-being because mm-hmm. of ignorance. Do you know what I mean? There's two sides to every coin, and I struggle with it, but I will say yes, I totally understand why Claire did what she had to do, Dave, why she had to go and hide, you know.
I believe that each child has, I believe that when it comes to decisions like that, I believe that a child should be allowed to make their own decision as they get older.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, every decision that involves a child, just remember, it doesn't matter, like, I mean, as you said, I mean, his father had his reasons for doing what he'd done. Claire has her reasons for doing what she's doing, and they're very valid reasons, and I agree with them 100%. But I personally, I would believe that when it comes to a child, if two parents can't agree on making the decision in respect of the child's welfare, then leave it alone till the child is old enough to make their own decision.
Absolutely. And Dave, on that note, I'm going to bid you good night. And thanks very much for calling into the show tonight. And it's a very heavy topic, but a very, very, very important one. And this will go up as a podcast in the next couple of days. and I hope enough people get to hear this and decipher the information. There's a lot of information there, but there's a lot of very, very important points outlined in this conversation that we had tonight, David, and we'll have you on again in the show in the future.
I would love to come back again anytime, James. I would love to come back anytime. James, if there's one other thing I could say, if you don't mind,
sure.
In relation to Claire, what we're actually looking to do at the moment is we're looking to bring over in October experts experts in the field of medical science to help support and argue Claire's case. And I see on the TNS on the web page there that they have a link or a button there to for donations in respect of Claire's story. Now, Claire can't afford to bring these people over from America or bring them over from the UK to give evidence in her case in October. And any support that can be given from anybody out there in relation to making sure that Claire's case goes ahead with the defence that she requires. Okay, that your listeners out there, just click that donate button, and any contribution that you can make in respect of making Claire's case happen would be gratefully appreciated and welcomed, because not only will the decision that judge makes when this case comes up on the 30th of October, okay, and I need to make this very clear, this case, it is Claire's case, but the decision that the High Court judge makes in his final ruling doesn't just affect Claire and her child. It will have an outstanding effect on every child across the country. Mm-hmm. It will affect every child, every parent.
Yeah.
So it is within everybody's interest to help us, to help Claire to get the decision and the ruling that she needs.
Mm-hmm.
So if it means that there's somebody out there that can help bring these experts over from America during the time that Claire's case is going on in Dublin, then if they are able to do so by whatever means possible, then please get in touch with yourselves, get in touch with Vane, click that button link on TNS Radio and make some sort of a donation so these people can be brought over.
Yeah. The email address is project.awaken1@yahoo.com.
That's right.
That's project.awaken1@yahoo.com. And yes, and that's fantastic that you're bringing over these professionals, because unfortunately that's all the courts understand and hear. So we do need these people to be able to provide some sort of scientific evidence to the case to make it.
That's right.
To make it stick,
Yes, that's right. That's right.
That's how it works, and that's all they hear.
Yes. And if you want to find out any more about who FACT are, you can go to our website, www.fact.ie, and you're welcome to leave your own comments there. There's a comments page there. Our website is going to be updated shortly, so any of the information is currently there at the moment is going to be changed. There's going to be all new information updated on it. And as well as that, as we're a voluntary organisation, do you know what I mean? Our bank information is on our website, on the last page of our website. So any contributions that anybody can make to ourselves and the work that we do individually will be gratefully appreciated as well. James, I'd like to say thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome.
And I shall be talking to you again soon.
Yes, you will. And I'd like to say thank you very much for the work that you're doing, Dave. and you're a hugely energetic individual who has an immense amount of experience and knowledge in the area of family law, and that I'm delighted to say that you're not just helping fathers, but you're also helping mothers in relation to the family, which is brilliant, because I know that's originally how you started up with FACT. So
yes.
Fair play to you, and I'll give you a pat on the back, because I know you don't get that many, so I'll give you one. There's one for you. And I'll be in touch with you very shortly anyway. We've got much to discuss in different areas as well.
No problem, James, no problem. And thank you for the company, and thanks for everybody for listening. And I say good night to all.
Okay. Good night, Dave.
Okay, good night.
Good night. So that was Dave from FACT Ireland. That's FACT. It's fathers and children together. And he, as Dave outlined, that there is a website there that you can go and visit. And thanks very much to Dave for coming on the show. That was a marathon conversation, I have to say. And I'm absolutely worn out now. It's now 2:42 a.m. and I was going to play a pre-record from earlier in the week with Aisling Fitzgibbon from the Fluoride campaign, but I'm actually going to hold back on that. I'm going to play it out next week because the show is now 2 hours and 42 minutes long. So I think I've given you guys enough food for thought for one night, and what can I say? That is just information that you would never, ever, ever, ever hear on any national radio station. They'd rather talk about fucking Zig and Zag and fucking the Grimes twins or whatever crap is going on a national level. And guys, all the TNS radio hosts out there, please get more people on your shows. Like David, it's happening locally. He's working nationally. He's working locally. And look, we got to keep pumping this stuff out, lads. We got to keep pumping it out. It's so important. Voices like David, they're not heard enough. I've never ever heard a conversation like that on any national radio station or any local radio station. TNS is so important. It's so important to keep pumping this stuff out. Guys, we've got to keep doing it. I'm totally committed to doing it, and I know everyone else in TNS Radio as well is totally committed to providing this sort of information to the general public, and anybody that wants to get more involved, get in contact with Vin on TNS Radio, and if you can help in any way, shape or form to provide any more interviews like that. It's heavy material, but it's just so important. I had Cathy Sinnott on a number of weeks ago talking about very similar stuff, and the very scary prospect of this new children's referendum that's they're going to try and push through, which strips the rights of parents for their own children and the welfare of their own children, which pretty much gives the power to the state to come in and take away your kids if your children decide themselves that they're not being looked after by their own parents. And as we all know, that teenagers, especially teenagers, can be quite cantankerous, and if they might say the wrong thing and all of a sudden, they're gone. So we really don't want this sort of legislation being pushed through, and it's coming from the UN. And as we know, the UN is controlled by the minority elite, global elite, that don't have a very nice agenda for the rest of us useless eaters, as the phrase goes by certain members of the global elite. So on that note, I bid you farewell and good night, and sleep well, and remember, it's all about community, it's all about family. And I'm really happy to have had the opportunity to talk about the most important thing, which is the children, because without the children we have absolutely no future whatsoever. We gotta look after the children. So I'm going to play out a song. I'm going to finish absolutely shattered, and just want to finish off by saying that unlucky to Waterford that got beaten today in the All-Ireland quarterfinals. I watched it in my local pub O'Neill's today, and they're beaten by a resurgent Cork side, who really put it up to them there towards the end. And Waterford had the winnings of the game, but unfortunately threw it away, like Waterford have done many times in the past. And all we can do is hope that Waterford will at some stage in the future be able to hold it together for the last 35 minutes of the game in the All-Ireland Championships. So here's Declan O'Rourke, one of my favourite songs. This is Galileo. Good night.